there is a new build for Warlocks going around and they are gaining up steam very fast. As you can see right here, a US player named Neaton has managed to hit rank 16th in the world already, and this build might have the potential to hit rank 1, so let's take a look at it. This build is actually Affliction. There is several reasons for that, but first of all, we're gonna be stacking all the dots we can, because we can scale very well with them now. So we're gonna be taking Corruption, so we can make it instant. That's a bit of a no-brainer. We're gonna be taking Drain Life, because yes, we are gonna use Drain Life as a dot. We're gonna slap 2 points in Life Tap, just for more mana, of course. We're gonna take Amplify Curse for more Curse damage, and we are gonna take Curse of Agony for more damage. Then we're gonna be taking Nightfall. This is a chance when your Corruption ticks of getting another free Shadow Bolt. Well, not free, instant, even better. And we're gonna get Grim Reach just for range, so it's a little easier to hit the bosses. Now we're gonna take 1 point in Siphon Life. That's gonna be yet another dot we're gonna use. Down here we gotta waste a couple points. There is nothing good that we can get to the next one. You might say, why don't you take Hit? Well, there is very few actual Affliction abilities that we use in Affliction, believe it or not, because Shadow Bolt, that's the one that you use the most, and that's technically Destruction. But anyway, we're gonna take some points here. There you go, 4 points. We're gonna go down here for Shadow Mastery. This is the big one. We're gonna take 10% more shadow damage. This talent is absolutely useless. We're not gonna mess with this one. It is worse than a life tap. Why would you take a talent when you got life tap? Next in line, we're gonna go here for Improved Shadow Bolt for more damage. We're gonna be using a lot of Shadow Bolts. We're gonna go down here for Bane. We're gonna be taking casting time of the Shadow Bolt, so we can do 0.5 second faster Shadow Bolt. Down here, this is the big one. Devastation, that's a bunch of free crit. We are also gonna take 2 points in Destructive Reach, so our Shadow Bolt can get a little further. And we are gonna take Cataclysm here to reduce the mana cost of our spells, 3 points. Down here, this is Ruin. This doubles up the damage of our crit. You see, we're gonna crit with our spells, and those can crit now, and they are gonna do double damage now, so that's huge. As you can see, this is why a bunch of Warcraft logs have trouble telling which Warlock is Affliction, which Warlock is Destruction, because you'll never take a Keystone talent. Maybe Fire Destroy is the only spec that takes a Keystone talent. These Keystone talents are absolute crap, but what makes this build so good is that you can use almost 2 entire specs in between worth of bonuses. Okay, for the head we're gonna be taking Pandemic, because we're gonna be stacking all the dots that exist in the freaking game and we want them to be able to crit. Then for the back we're gonna be taking Soul Siphon. This is gonna make it so our Drain Soul is gonna be a little stronger than our Shadow Bolt on the execute phase. That's pretty cool, below 20% health. That's gonna be our filler. For the chest we're gonna be taking Master Channeler. That's for our Drain Life right here. We're gonna be using Drain Life to get another dot. For the wrist we're gonna be taking Unstable Affliction, yet another dot. For the hands we're gonna be taking Haunt, 1 more dot. More dots, more dots, more dots. For the waist we're gonna be taking Shadow and Flame, because every time we crit, remember our dots can crit. We're gonna get 10% more damage, so you essentially got a permanent 10% damage bonus on you. If you can take a look at his logs, almost every second he gets a new Shadow and Flame, so he has 100% uptime on this thing pretty much. That's what makes this rune so nasty for them. Then for the legs we're gonna be taking Everlasting Affliction, because that is gonna refresh our Corruption, and that means more globals for pumping. Then for the feet we're gonna be taking Shadow Flame. It is just another filler ability. It does a bunch of damage, that's it. For the rings we're gonna be taking Fire, and we're gonna be taking Shadow, because that's the only things we can get. Of course, that's free hit. Overall, nothing too crazy except the runes. The commitment to dot after dot after dot is something new. Usually people went for the imp talent that gives you intellect or something like that. This is completely different. Your stat priority is gonna be pretty simple. First of all, you're gonna get 10% hit. Remember, it is 16%, but you got the runes, so it is only 10% you gotta get in total. Then after that we're gonna stack a bunch of spell power, as much shadow spell power as you can get. Following that closely we're gonna get intellect, because we need a mana pool. You still need some mana pool to pull this off, and also intellect is gonna give you a bunch of crit. Followed by that is gonna be spell crit, period. Of course, spell crit is a huge part of this build. And finally we're gonna be taking stamina. Stamina helps. If you can get some free stamina, you might as well get it. It's gonna translate into mana, so of course that matters. If you got a particularly thick HP pool, you can actually go without intellect and go for more spell crit, so it will help. Also, by the way, that's why Dire Maul buffs are such a big deal for Warlocks. You gotta get your buffs, guys. The rotation is gonna be a little complicated, but not too crazy. First of all, we're gonna be using an imp, okay? Because if you have no talent or runes that benefit a pet, imp is still the best pet you can go for. It does the most damage, simple enough. To open the pool, we're gonna precast a Shadow Bolt if you can, of course. This is like a Pyroblast, except a lot less damage, sadly. But then there is a lot of dots we gotta keep up. First of all, we gotta keep up Haunt, then we gotta keep up Curse of Agony, then we wanna keep up Unstable Affliction, then we wanna keep up Corruption, then we're gonna drop a Drain Life, which is now a dot, don't forget, and if it is not on cooldown, we're also gonna be dropping Siphon Life. We are also gonna drop Dead Coil, that's yet another dot. So what's that, 8 dots? I don't even know, I cannot even count anymore, there's so many of them, they just keep coming at me. It's like, too many dots, guys. But after that, you're gonna wanna do, first of all, priority for filler number 1, if you get an instant Shadow Bolt proc, I am gonna drop a Wikora in the Discord, guys, in the Warlock section of SoD, that is gonna tell you when you get a proc, so you can drop an instant Shadow Bolt. So when Nightfall procs, you're gonna do a Shadow Bolt instantly, that's number 1. After that, you're gonna fill with Shadow Flame, super important. And after that, you're gonna be the one to drop a Shadow Bolt, normally. That's the last in the priority. Of course, if the boss is under 20% HP, you're gonna be doing an instant Shadow Bolt if you get the proc, and then you're gonna be doing Shadow Flame, and then you're gonna be doing just Drain Soul. The AoE of this build is absolute crap. I am sorry, there is nothing really good you can do about that. You can take Shadow Bolt Poly if you know you're gonna be ahead of AoE, but for the most part, you gotta do Rain of Fire, and that's no fun. I know SoD Corruption is absolutely bonkers in TBC and stuff, but wouldn't it be nice if we got a SoD Corruption, bro? Oh god, that would be 14k DPS, bro. But as you can see, this build is nothing too crazy, except the fact that now with the runes we get a quadrillion dots. So what makes this build so good in phase 4 is that we can get to Shadow Mastery for 10% damage, and we can get Ruin for extra crit damage. Now, if it were just that, it wouldn't be that insane, but now our dots can crit. Under any other circumstance, it wouldn't be such a big deal, because if we had no runes, as you can see right here, the dots are only about half the damage, so Ruin wouldn't scale with half your stuff, but now your stuff can scale. Also, since we got so many new dots, one of them is bound to tick all the time. That's just sheer chance. So that means you're gonna have 10% more damage all the time on you. So this build is basically just the most maximized way of taking advantage of every single one of your talents. And I really think they did not think this through when they put so many freaking dots new in the runes, guys. Now, will this be the top build forever? There is a chance it won't. Fire is permanent 30% haste, and it has a lot more potential with crits. So we might get at a point where fire destruction, maybe in tier 2, maybe that's when fire destruction is gonna take off really fast, they might outscale, but right now I do not think you can get much better than this. As you can see right here, I think the set bonuses are more angled for Affliction than actual fire. The 6 piece is just an extra free Incinerate or Immolate, which is fine, I guess, but the 6 piece for Affliction is that you get a 4% more to Nightfall, which is already like another chance on top of that. So mathematically speaking, your Nightfall is way better than the fire 6 set bonus, and the extra mana and the 2% crit doesn't really hurt. That's also very good. I remember this later, guys, but I wanted to bring it up as well. One thing that is also holding the Warlock in general back is that the 0.5 set is pretty crap. I mean, take a look at the 2-piece, it's 23 spell power. Now, the stats are actually pretty freaking decent, look at this. This set has a lot of hit and stuff, and it has a lot of spell power too, but the problem is you really want to go for tier 1, even though the stats on this thing are really good, because at the end of the day you gotta hit your fire resistance cap if you want to progress through hit, and it is way more efficient to just take tier 1 instead of like sacrificing some pieces just to get some fire resistance. Honestly, if it were up to me, I would buff the set bonuses of tier 1. I mean, I would buff the set bonuses of tier 0.5 too, because it's pretty crap. But the point that I'm trying to make is that as much as Affliction is taking off on its own, I think that itemization is also hurting fire a lot. So that's why I think it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens once we get tier 2. Let's see how that looks like. But hey, we are really close to seeing a Warlock get to number 1, so that's really cool to see. Subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching.